Hey, y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, the Derby Trail continues with a new Derby prep. It's the Virginia Derby, ungraded at 500,000, run at Colonial Downs. They're having a special little 3-day festival meet this weekend. And this is a race that used to be run on turf, and now they have moved it to dirt. It's running a mile and an eighth. It is a two-turn race for 3-year-olds. And I'll just say right off the bat, because this is a isolated meet, it's going to be kind of hard to get a feel for the track. So I would encourage everybody to watch on Friday and early on Saturday to get a feel for how it's playing. I know over the course of the summer at Colonial Downs, it was playing very speed friendly, but remember that's in the summer when the track's probably a little harder because of the heat and whatnot. And Virginia this time of year, as a lot of you know, is kind of well, it's March. You know, it's early spring, and we haven't shaken off winter completely yet. So the track may play very differently. So we'll just have to watch and see. Take a look at this field. We've seen quite a few of these before, most notably John Hancock, who recently won the Sam F. Davis. There is, I am told, I've heard there is the possibility he may scratch out of this race. So keep that in mind. Of course, the ubiquitous entry for the coach, American Promise for D. Wayne Lucas, Omaha, the closer, Studley Do-Right, who just came off a Turfway, and I think those of you who follow my posts will probably know what we're going to do there. Getaway car for Bob Baffert, who just won the Sunland Derby and showed some pretty good fight in the stretch there. Brad Cox throwing yet another maiden into stakes company with Rapture. Kenny McPeak, we've got Render Judgment. And for Tom Amos, Authentic Gallop. And calling card from Mike Maker. Want to mention him as well. So a good sized field, and it's got a little bit of everything in it. And we'll see here, and you do have quite a few E's in this race. So, but to say that the pace will be lively, I'm not so sure, to be honest. Who gets the lead? They may just let Georgia Magic go get it. I think they're going to send. That horse has no chance in the race. Best chance would be to try to wire it. So I think they'll do that, but that horse just isn't fast enough. Regardless, I don't think the pace is going to be really lightning fast. And again, it's because those that are prominent, namely John Hancock and Getaway Car, and even American Promise, they're not going to want to try to bolt out. They're going to try to keep a reasonable pace so they can finish the race. So I expect the pace to be reasonable to moderate. Who's going to get it? John Hancock or Getaway Car? I'm not so sure. They may vie for it, but I think once it's established, you know, the one who doesn't get it will probably settle. So from a race shape perspective, I don't expect the pace to be really fast. It doesn't seem that way to me, unless Georgia Magic decides to just try to freak and go crazy. I don't know, but it just doesn't appear on paper that would be the case. So taking a look at, we're going to go through all of them one at a time as we do, and we'll start with John Hancock, and certainly the Sam F. Davis victory is flattered by what Owen Almighty just did in the Tampa Derby, without a doubt. He showed a lot of grit, battling all the way down the stretch with a really good horse in Owen Almighty. But we got to remember something, that Owen Almighty is a little distance challenged. And I'm going to stick with that all the way. Nobody's talking me off of that. His connections have already said that the Pat Day Mile is more likely than the Derby. We'll see about that. So one thing about it, you can like the fact that John Hancock showed a lot of fight, and I like that a lot. But just remember, that was a horse that was backing up Owen Almighty in the stretch a little bit, and I think it was because of the distance. Now, John Hancock has pedigree that's not necessarily for a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter, because on the dam side, there ain't a lot of stamina there. And we got to remember that. And that's, I looked up a lot of these. looking through all the pedigrees, and quite a few of them have the same problem on the dam side. And let's remember, the dam gives you the class and where you can run, and it's primarily the stamina you want to get. You're going to get the speed from the sire. So dams with tending towards sprinter miler type pedigree, maybe a mile and an eighth might make it a little too far. John Hancock, that's the case. Same thing with Getaway Car. Now, I'm giving a little bit of an edge to Getaway Car because of the amount of races around 2 turns that he's run, and he's a little the horses he's been running against are a little classier, and his late fraction is a little better at a mile and a 16th. You know, we don't know a mile and an eighth, but at a mile and a 16th, it's just a little better. I got a feeling Getaway Car is more likely to hang in there a little longer than John Hancock. We'll talk about him next. So I like him in this spot to stick around for at least second for that reason. I don't think he's necessarily a win candidate here. I don't think either of them are, to be honest. I think both of them can stick around and stay in the money, but the rubber's starting to meet the road when you start getting around a mile and an eighth, and I just have a feeling maybe that's where we're going to show chinks in the armor are going to show. American Promise has run the same race for the last 3. He tries to make a move at the top of the turn and he flattens out because he just isn't good enough. I think that's really the bottom line to American Promise. I did notice in his last race his late fraction improved a little bit, but not enough to make you think that he can necessarily stick around. Now, pedigree-wise, he has a mile and an eighth. He should be okay at, but he just doesn't have the speed, I don't think, to win this race. From what we've seen, when you start seeing horses try to make a move and then they flatten out and they consistently do it, I think that speaks more to the class than it does anything else. So I'm going to let American Promise go for that reason. As I mentioned, Georgia Magic just isn't good enough. I think Getaway Car, we've talked about him. He has the same problem as John Hancock, but he's a little classier, so I expect him to do a little bit better than John Hancock, but not by much. Now, Studley Do Right. If he hadn't just run at Turfway, I'd toss him. Now, you guys know my feelings about horses leaving synthetic at Turfway and moving to dirt. Obviously, Chunk of Gold was a really nice call for us. And I think Studley Do Right ran pretty well in the Battaglia. And I think that should set him up to run pretty well here. He has the pedigree to go a mile and an eighth. He hasn't been good enough, and he's not. I don't think he can win this race, but can he get up at a price underneath in the exotics? You betcha. And for that reason, Studley Do Right will be in my mix, and that's the only reason. Other than that, if he was coming from another dirt race, I would toss him. We'll talk about Authentic Gallop for Tom Amoss. Interesting, he showed a lot of pluck in the last race. You had basically 4 horses all battling down the stretch to take that optional claimer, and he was the one who got up. It was an improved effort over some of the ones he had before, and this one's got 2-turn pedigree all day long. But I do wonder about whether he would have to take a significant step forward speed-wise, and if he's a better or a lower price than Render Judgment or even Omaha or Studley Do Right, I don't want him in the exotics because then he's an underlay to me. I still don't think he's quite good enough, but pedigree-wise, he might be able to stick around. I would wait till post time, and if he does have really good odds, I would throw him in the mix for under of the try, but that would be the extent of it for me. Render Judgment just doesn't seem to be progressing. I really liked him at 2 years old, but he just hasn't built on it. He just hasn't gotten any better. However, I will say this about that Risen Star. Now, nobody was going to beat Magnitude that day, and horses were running off the pace, really didn't factor a whole lot except for Chunk of Gold. But I'll tell you one thing. This horse is now coming in second off the layoff, and an improved effort from what he had been running at the stakes level at 2. So it is possible, and incidentally, I think he was running closer to the pace than he really wants to. So taking him back may improve his chances to get into the money. Coming in second off the layoff with Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez. So I'm not, for this race, and it's a little bit of a class relief as well. So at 12-1, I think Render Judgment is a horse you can comfortably use underneath. And but he has the same type of pedigree that John Hancock and Getaway Car do as well. It's more sprint underneath. He's got a little bit more stamina, but he would need to get faster, and he needs to take a step forward. But Render Judgment, I think you can maybe throw underneath in the exotics. Omaha, this is should be a very good scenario. You got pedigree to run all day, and there may be a little bit of pace, maybe not. But even if there isn't, I think this is a good spot for him, provided the track cooperates and isn't too speed favoring. I think Omaha can factor in this race and has a bit of an outside chance to win it. He definitely needs to get faster as well, but I think you can comfortably use him in the exotics, and I like him. In some respects, I like him a little better than John Hancock or Getaway Car to get up for second. But Omaha, definitely one you can use. Rapture's my pick to win it, and here's why. First of all, his pedigree screams 2 turns for 1 1/8 miles. Now, he needs to get faster and needs to move forward, but as we proved with John Hancock, Brad Cox did, that's entirely possible for one of his horses leaving a maiden. Was I thrilled with his maiden score? Not overly. And the reason being is that they really had to hard ride him to wake him up in the stretch. Once they did, he drew off very well. So that's encouraging from that perspective. Where the appeal to me, more than anything else, is you do have a horse with some upside, but he's got the pedigree for 1 1/8 miles, where some of these are a little suspect at that distance. And am I 100% confident picking Rapture? No. And I'll be the first to admit it. It's going to be a tough race. But you can't Getaway Car at 9-5 when we talk about his pedigree for 1 1/8 miles or John Hancock. So I'll take the horse that's got a little bit of upside, who appears to be in good form, and everything looks good. You got Flavian Pratt. That's enough for me to get excited about. And if it was a jockey's choice between Rapture and John Hancock, which I'm not so sure it was, then Rapture certainly would be the pick to win. But again, do I have 100% confidence in it? Not really. It's just one of those races. But he looks to me like the one who'll get the 1 1/8 miles, has the upside and the potential to run a speed figure commensurate to win this race. And he should be sitting right off the leaders and tactically will be in a better position than the other later runners. So Rapture will take to win. So for our wagering strategy, we'll go with Rapture. Hopefully we can get around 5-1 to win. We'll do cold exactas with 7-6. I think Getaway Car can stick around for second. I think that's a good bet. So he would be my primary second choice. And then we'll throw John Hancock in as well. But then, because, again, I'm not overly confident, we're going to do a key box with John Hancock, Omaha, and Getaway Car with Rapture, because I do think that it's not 100% to me, just because Rapture's coming from a maiden, and I'm not overly excited about it. Trifecta, we'll go 7 with 246, 246. Then we'll do 7 with 246 with 5-9 with either Render Judgment or Studley Do Right. If you can get good odds, you can throw Authentic Gallop in there too, or in the alternative. I wouldn't blame you there. It should be a very interesting race. It's, if I had to, I'll just throw it in there. If I had to take one of the an alternative to Rapture, if you're looking for one, I probably would take Getaway Car. I just don't like him at 9-5. So I think Rapture makes a little more sense to me. So I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always. Certainly, if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And thanks to all of you who have come on board. Let me know what you think. I love hearing from you guys. You guys have been great about comments lately, and I really appreciate it. And I enjoy seeing them, and like to hear these alternative inputs. It's really it helps me and it helps all of us in our community do better in these derby preps, which sometimes can be very unpredictable. We will have an individual posting for the Virginia Oaks as well, and we probably will stick a Colonial with the sequence. We'll take a look around and see what we see. It's early in the week, and if you guys have an alternative, any ideas for me on a sequence that you'd like us to cover, feel free to drop me a line. This is a perfect week to do it. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.